We're going to look at this subject for just a moment this morning, and it's just entitled, It's Not Fair. We've all said it. We've all thought it. We've all had moments in our life where we just went, that's just not fair. I mean, it's not fair. It's not fair to me, or it's not fair to them. We've seen people that are being mistreated. We're going, that's not fair. We've had things happen in our life and didn't happen in their life. And we go, it's not fair. I don't understand how they're blessed and I'm not. I don't understand how they get by with that and I don't. I don't understand why they have it all, everything seems so great and pleasant for them and I'm struggling. It's not fair. We've probably either said it, we've either heard it, said it, or at least thought it at times in our life. That just doesn't seem right. It just doesn't seem fair. Maybe we were mistreated. Maybe we've seen someone else being mistreated. Maybe we've assumed someone had favor that we didn't have, or they're going through something and it's not fair. It's not right. And something that is difficult, and I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, something that is very difficult for me to say today, but the more I read the Bible, the more I think it's true. And I don't think I've ever really preached on this thought before. And again, it's kind of difficult for me to say, but we have to at least look at the Bible and go, I don't know that God is always fair. I don't know that God always treats us all the same. I don't know that we all have the same life and the same, outcomes in life. And it's hard for us. In our culture, we want fairness. If we all work in the same place, we want the same pay scale. If we all do the same job, we want to get paid the same. If we all, we want the same type of health care. We want the same type of outcome in our life. We want fairness. We don't want to see kids being treated unfairly. We want them to be treated fairly. And we want, families to be treated fairly. In our culture, it's pretty common for us to go, it's just not right. It's just not fair. Yet we look at the Bible, and I have to admit, I look at it, and I read it, and I go, I don't know. It doesn't seem like God is always fair, at least according to our barometer, according to our scale. I don't know that God's always fair. Let me give you a couple of examples or scenarios, so you understand where I'm coming from, and then we'll dive in a little deeper as we go along. There are some believers today who are dying of a torturous death because of their faith. We had someone here not too long ago, a few weeks back, who's one of the Christian leaders in the nation of Nigeria. And Stephen shared some stories, he and his wife Naomi, and shared some stories from Nigeria. And now, interestingly enough, ever since we've had him here, Nigeria has been in the news a lot based on the persecution. Just read that 300 and some students were abducted from a school just recently. And more is happening. People being killed. It doesn't seem right. Some believers are dying a torturous martyr's death while others live out their faith in comfort. That doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem fair that some are dealing with that and others aren't. That doesn't seem right. Some believers die believing for a miracle while others receive instant healing. That, in my mind, doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right that some believers live in poverty while other believers live in luxury. That doesn't seem right. If God was a fair God, we would all just be living at the same level, receiving the same stuff, doing the same thing, being treated the same. But I see life, and it's not that way. Some come from horrific beginnings and early childhood trauma, while others come from wonderful homes. It doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem fair to me. Many have lied to pastors. Did you know that? Many have lied to pastors. Many have lied to churches. Ananias and Sapphira died because of it. That doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem fair to me. Doesn't seem fair that Jesus would walk down to a pool one day, and this pool, this little pond, was surrounded by people who were sick, people who were crippled, people who were dying. And he walked up to one man out of all of those people and told him to get up and walk. And that one man got up and walked. I would think everyone around that pond would have been saying, well, that's not fair. That's not right. That doesn't seem like that would be the God that I serve. The God that I serve wouldn't do that. The God that I serve would be fair. Yet when we read the scripture, I have to admit, it seems like at times maybe God's not that fair. Many have made mistakes. Many have disobeyed God. Many Christians have heard the voice of God, disobeyed the voice of God, disobeyed what God was saying without any repercussion, or at least noticeable repercussion. Yet Moses makes what I would call a minor mistake. And God says, you're not going into the promised land. I would think that's not fair. Of all the stuff that he did for God, all the things that he did, all the times that he heard the voice and obeyed the voice. But a few minor things, and God says, you're not entering into the promised land. We talked about Acts chapter 12. Acts chapter 12, we see Peter and James being arrested. James is arrested, put in prison, a Roman prison, and later drug out into the public arena and beheaded. Peter, a few days later, is arrested, put in the same prison, and at the night before he was to be killed, God sends an angel and opens up the door for the prison, and Peter walks out of the very same prison that James spent his last night in. Peter walks down to the house where the church is praying. He walks in, and they're all celebrating and rejoicing, and all of his family and all of his friends are rejoicing that Peter was delivered out of prison, while James's family is over here still mourning the death of James. Arrested for the same thing, put in the same prison with a totally different outcome. And I have to admit, while Peter's friends and families are all rejoicing, I imagine James's family was going, I'm glad God did that for Peter, but that doesn't seem fair. That doesn't seem right that my dad didn't get out. That didn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right that my husband wasn't delivered. Doesn't seem right that my brother wasn't delivered. Peter, I'm glad he got delivered. That's amazing. But that's not fair, God. That's not right in my eyes. That's not fair. It's not fair that they would have to go through that while others didn't. It's not fair that they had this plot in life while others didn't have it. That doesn't seem right to me. It doesn't seem fair. And we're going to continue this thought for just a few moments this morning. And I hope today, I often preach, and I'm just going to hope that it's something that we can go home and think about. I want us to go home today and go, okay, let's look at the Bible in whole and go, okay, who is God and what has he done for me? And oftentimes I think we look at God and go, well, God, if you're a real God and you're a true God and you're a loving God, you wouldn't do that. That's not fair. But how many understands God is not necessarily what we would call fair, but he is very just. He is very loving. He is very true. And we go, well, that's not right and that's not fair, but we only see through the minds of this little finite body of mine, this little finite mind I have. We don't understand that God is infinite. He's beyond where I am. He thinks beyond where I think. He sees beyond what I can see. How many funerals did Jesus attend? How many times did he visit a grave? Yet he only raised a handful of people from the dead. I would think I would be one of those people going, well, Jesus, that's not fair. You raised Lazarus. Oh, I know, he was your buddy, but you raised him from the dead and you didn't raise my son. I don't think that's fair. I don't get it. That's not right. Can God do the miraculous? Absolutely. We know that. God can do the miraculous. Of course he can. I know that we can pray and believe. I know that God is able to do abundantly above all that I can ever ask or imagine. I go to God. I know God can do that. I know he can. We've seen it right here. We have a gentleman, we just talked about this a couple weeks ago, sitting back there who had one of his kidneys that was absolutely not functioning. And then just the other day, went to the hospital and they said, hey, good news, that was at 0% and now it's at 100%. A total miracle. Can God do it? Yes. Yes. We have too many miracles sitting right here in this room. We have too many miracles. People who had tumors, people who had cancer, people who had body functions that just wasn't working and God just miraculously healed. Yet we still have loved ones who have died believing. Does God answer prayer? Yes. Does he always answer the prayer the way I want him to? No. No. We've been told and taught over the years that faith is this. Faith is this, and we define it this way. When you pray and you receive what you want, then that's faith. That is not faith. That's a portion of it. That's a portion of it. Faith, real faith is this, and I think a better definition might be this. If you pray and you don't get what you want, do you still trust God? Now that's faith. That's faith when I say, okay, I don't know, God. I prayed and I didn't get it. We define prayer, faith is I pray and I get what I want. But maybe faith is I pray and I believe and I'm trusting. But even if it doesn't happen the way I want it to happen, I still believe in you. That may be the truest of faith. Now, am I suggesting that we don't pray? No, not at all. Let me just tell you this much. If you come to us and you go, I'm sick, I need prayer, we are going to believe for a healing until you take your last breath. Unless God just gives us a word to do something completely different, the church here is going to pray for a miracle because we believe in miracles. Do we believe in healing? Absolutely. If you come, we're saying, I'm sick and I need prayer, we're going to pray that God will heal you and touch you. And will he do it? We believe that he's going to. We believe that. We believe that God is able to do it. We believe that God is more than able to heal our bodies. We believe God's more than able to provide. If you come and go, we are in a terrible need in our family and we need provision in the worst way, and we're going to pray and just go, God, I believe you can provide. I know that he can because he's done it many times. And I know that he can do that. And we're going to believe with you. We'll believe until God says to do something completely different. But what we found is even when we pray and believe, sometimes God doesn't answer the way I want him to answer. Sometimes he doesn't do what I want him to do because I view God sometimes like a genie in a bottle. If I just pray the right prayer and I say the right words and somehow I summon the right kind of faith, God's just going to do what I want him to do. And, well, I don't know how else to say it. God's much bigger than you are. And you don't really get to mandate what God does. You don't really get to tell God what to do. You're not that big. You're not there quite yet. Sometimes I don't see what God sees, and I don't know what God knows, and I don't understand what God understands. Can God do the miraculous? Oh, yes, absolutely God can. And we're going to believe and trust that he's going to. But does God always give the miracles that we're looking for? Well, no. No, he doesn't. And that's where we start saying, but that's just not fair. That's just not right. We've made the mistake of saying, well, if God's done it for them, they'll do it, then he'll do it for you. If God's done it for Josh, then Kervin, he will do it for you. That's not always true. We like to believe that's true. In my mind, I'd like to believe, well, if God's done it for Josh, he would do it for you. Well, if we were saying God is fair, then yes, that would be fair. But what God is just. Let me give you. I'll help you understand what I'm trying to say. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12. Many believers were eaten and mauled by lions centuries ago. In fact, they made it a sport. They would take them into the arena, and Christians, believers, children of God, would be mauled and eaten by lions. Yet Daniel went to a lion's den and wasn't eaten or even licked by a lion. And I have to go, well, that doesn't seem fair. Many believers have been burned at the stake alive, tied to a stake, wood around their feet, lit on fire, and burned alive, and their last breaths were screams. Yet Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was thrown into a fiery furnace and survived it without even their clothes coming out smelling like smoke. It's so easy for us to say, well, if he's done it for one person, he's going to do it for you. I just don't know that that's always true. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12, and there's a warning in the Bible. There's a warning that says, don't compare yourself to other people. If you compare yourself to other people, you're being foolish. 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 12 tells us why I think we're not supposed to compare ourselves to other people. It says, for we don't dare classify or compare ourselves with someone who commend themselves. But in measuring themselves by themselves and comparing themselves to themselves, they lack understanding. When we begin doing this, we lack something. We lack understanding. I don't understand. I don't understand why God does this. I don't understand why God does that. I don't understand why God would do that for Josh and he didn't for me. I don't understand why God would do that for Kervin and he doesn't do that for me. I don't understand why he did it for me and he won't do it for them. I don't understand that. I don't understand why this is happening. And if we're not careful as believers, instead of going, God, I trust you, I start looking at everybody else and going, well, but what about them? Remember, that's what Peter got in trouble for when he looked at John, when Jesus says, Peter, you're going to have a road to hoe. You're going to have a tough life. And Peter's initial response was, well, what about John? It's not fair, Jesus, that I have to go through that, and he doesn't. Remember what Jesus said? Hey, I'm going to paraphrase. Hey, Peter, why don't you worry about your own life? Instead of worrying about everyone else's life, you worry about your own life. You do what I'm calling you to do. You do what I'm revealing to you today. In other words, what he's saying is, Peter, you run your race. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, again, tells us why we've got to be careful comparing ourselves to other people. It says this, therefore, since we also have such a large cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every hindrance and every sin that so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance. Everybody say endurance. Yeah. Let us run with endurance. In other words, don't stop, don't quit. Let us run with endurance the race that lies before us. In other words, your race isn't my race. I have to run my race. I have to follow the voice of God in my life. I have to run the race that he set before me. I have to say, I'm going to run it with endurance no matter what happens. I'm going to run the race that God has for me to race. And it doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem fair that my race isn't like your race. That's not fair. I wish my race, led to millions of dollars. I really do. That'd be a good race to run. I probably shouldn't tell the story, but my parents are here on the second row this morning, and they're spending the week with us and Thanksgiving, and we're going to go hunting later on today. Well, my dad and I, my mom's not. But thank God we don't let her have guns. But, my father got saved years ago, whatever it's been, 65 years ago now or something, and got saved. He and another young man, his age, they both got saved in a little tent revival in Illinois, and came to the Lord together, kind of grew up in the Lord together a little bit, and still great friends, and still visit with each other and go on vacations together and whatever. My dad was called to preach, and he started preaching. evangelistic work and began pastoring a church, started a church, pastored this little church with hardly anybody in it for several years. Now it's grown into a good, healthy church, but just started with nothing. While his friend who got saved that same day went into business and has made millions and millions of dollars in business. And at times I've thought, God, I think we mixed up something here. Somehow we got the wires twisted, right? Talking about two totally different races. Now, interestingly enough, my father could go, that's not fair. We both got saved together in the same service. We're still friends. It's not fair. Why did this happen? Why couldn't I have done that? Or his friend could say, that's not really quite fair. I've worked 18-hour days for the last 40 years. Why couldn't I have had that job? That's not fair. This is what we end up saying when all we do is compare ourselves to each other. Eventually, you're going to find someone you go, that's not fair. That's not fair that they get to do that and I don't. That's not fair that I get to do this and they don't. It's not fair. That's not right. But what we see in Scripture is this, that we all run our own race, the race that's set before us, the one that you're supposed to run. This is why God is just. Though we look at God and we go, God, that's just not fair. It's not fair in my eyes, but God's going, yes, but I'm just. I am calling you to run your race, not someone else's race. I'm not fair because you wouldn't want to run their race. What if you were the one called to be burned at the stake alive? I don't want to run that race. I'm glad God's just. He gets to call my race and say, this is a race I've called you for. Now you run your race. You don't have to run someone else's race. If you've ever seen, I brought a picture with me of a race, and if you've ever seen the 400-meter race, you might not tell by looking at me, but I never was a track star. We have some kids. They're not here today. They're hunting, I think, but they run track. But if you see a 400-meter race, it always looks funny when they start because they don't start in a straight line. Because the inside lane, lane one, and we have some track coaches that might need to help me here, but lane one on the inside is actually 54 meters shorter than lane 8. And if you're running a race that you have to stay in your lane, like a 400-meter race, you look up there and you go, wow, that guy up there in that far right corner has such a head start. And I've looked at starts at a race before and went, wow, that doesn't even look fair. They're way ahead. That's a terrible start. That's not fair. But when it all comes down to the finish line, they all run the exact same distance. The difference is you have to run your race. You have to run your race. We can spend the rest of our lives looking at people and saying, that's not fair. Or we can spend the rest of our lives looking up and going, God, I just trust you. I don't understand. I don't understand why I'm going through this and they're not. I don't understand why I battle this and they're not. I don't understand why the dark days come to me and they're not coming to everyone else. I don't understand it. I don't understand why I've been blessed in some ways and they're not. I don't understand why I feel like God, you healed my body and they're over there struggling with sickness, and that's unfair. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that Stephanie, when she was healed of cancer, there was a time where she just kind of struggled a little bit with, and I'm speaking for her, but struggled with, God, that doesn't seem right that you would heal me and not them. And what I find is this, we all just have to run our race. And it's not fair. It's just not fair. It doesn't, I can't tell you anything other than that's true. It's really not fair. Yet we all run our race. We all trust God. We all seek healing. We all seek provision. We all seek, peace. We all seek comfort. We all seek these things that God gives. But at the end of the race, there's a checkered flag, and we all eventually get to it. And some of us could look back on life and go, well, it sure doesn't seem right that I had to go through this and they didn't. I came from a terrible home and they came from a great home. I've worked my tail off for years, and I haven't been able to achieve, and they seem like they've worked part-time for 5 years and they've got more than I do. That doesn't seem right. This is what happens when we compare ourselves. And this is why Paul says, don't compare yourselves to other people, because you'll spend the rest of your life saying, this isn't fair. It's just not right. Let me give you almost 3 real quick stories in the Bible. 3 parables that Jesus told about being fair. And I read these stories, and these are stories that Jesus himself told, and I read them and I go, that's not fair. The first one is a story of the parable of the talents, we call it. It's found in Matthew 25. It's a story of where a farmer, an owner of land, he's a wealthy man. He's getting ready to go on vacation for a while. He comes to 3 of his servants. And he says, guys, I'm going to give you something, and I want you to do something with it. I want you to invest it. I want you to do your very best with what I'm getting ready to give you. One day I'm coming back to take an account of what I give you. And to one he gives, the Bible says, 5 talents. $5 we're going to call it. Let's get real here. $500, because you can't do anything with $5. $500. You can barely do something with $500, but we better make it $5,000. $500,000 I'm giving you. $500,000. This is yours. Now go do something with it. Comes to the next one. He says, I'm going to give you $200,000. Go do something with it. The third one walks in, and he says, and I'm going to give you $100,000. Go do something with it. Immediately, if we're reading that story, I go, well, that's not fair. I mean, come on. You're giving one guy $500,000 and another guy $100,000? That's not even right. Now, the Bible calls it talents. That's a type of money. If we were to use talents in the English language, I would go, Brian's awful talented. Jenny's awful talented. I'm sitting over here with like good looks. That's all we got going for us. And a sense of humor. That's not right. That's not fair. Why would they get all the talent? From the very beginning, I'm reading this story and I'm going, well, God, that's not even right. I mean, you should just give them all the same amount of money. That only makes sense. He gives one 5, he gives the other 2, and he gives the third one 1. The Bible says he went away for months. He comes back home. He calls those 3 servants into the office. He said, hey, the one I gave 5 to, come up. You need to give an account. What did you do with the 5? And he said, well, I took that 5 that you gave me, that $500,000, and I invested it, and I did something with it. I did the very best thing I could think of to do with it, and I did all that I could do with it, and it actually doubled. And now that 5 went to 10, and it went from $500,000 to $1 million. I just want to say here, I did what you asked. And the owner says, man, fantastic. In fact, what he said is, well done. You're a good and faithful servant. You get to come on in and live in eternity forever. He calls the one that he gave 2, and he says, hey, come on in. He said, I gave you $200,000 a while back. What'd you do with it? He said, oh, man, I worked with that, and I invested. I did stuff with it. I was as wise as I could be, and God kind of helped me here, and it doubled. I went from 200 to 400,000. Man, the owner was going, that's fantastic. In fact, he said the very same thing. Well done, you good and faithful servant. Come on in. You get to spend eternity with me. Then he calls the guy with 1. And he says, buddy, come on in. I gave you $100,000. What'd you do with it? This guy says, well, I was scared to death to lose that $100,000. I knew you'd be so aggravated. You'd be so ticked off if I lost that $100,000. I did you a huge favor. I just hid the money. That way I didn't lose a dime of it. Here it is, all $100,000. And the owner says, that's not what I told you to do. I told you to invest it. I told you to do something with it. I told you to multiply it. and all you did was that you took what I gave you and you hid it, and you did nothing with it. There's a whole sermon there. I don't have time to preach this morning, but if God gives us something, we need to do something with it. It says, I gave you this thing, and I told you to do something with it, and you didn't obey. You didn't do a thing with it. You did nothing with it. Because of that, you don't get to come in. You're not a good and faithful servant. Your eternity is completely different than the other two. And I read that story and I think, wow, God, that's not very fair. I mean, that's not very fair. I'm feeling sorry for the guy with one. Like, I felt sorry for him from the very beginning. This guy got 5, this one got 2, and he only got 1. For crying out loud, give him a break. It's only right, God, give the poor guy a break. He only got 1 anyway. Leave him alone. And what we see in this story is not the fairness of God. We see that God is a just God. The reality is this: none of them really got to keep what they earned. It doesn't say they put it in their account. It was all for the owner. And in fact, the guy with 1, it wasn't about the number. It wasn't about the number at all. Our minds go to the 5, 2, and 1. It wasn't about the number. It's about what you did with what you had. It was about you running your race. You running the race that God's put before you. It wasn't about, I went from 5 and now I've got 10 and the owner's all excited. It was about you did something with the 5. You did something with the 2. And the guy that only got 1 would have had the exact same reward had he just done something with it. And that's where I can say God is just. It's not about the 5 and the 2 and the 1. It's about the reward. The reward would have been the exact same. And if that's the case, then we would start going, but that's not fair for the guy with 5. If the reward's all the same, he actually made $500,000 for the owner. It's not about the number. It's not about the number. It's about the heart. Are you doing something with what God's given to you? And it's only just for God to treat us and reward us the way that he does. It wasn't about fairness. I look at that story and go, well, that's not fair at all. No, it's not fair, but it's just. It's just. I think about the parable of the prodigal son. You got a dad and has 2 sons. One son runs away, lives in riotous living. He's living wild. He's taking all his money. He's going and spending it all. He spends every dime of it in parties and at the club. And then all of a sudden he comes in to realize he has no money. He has no friends. He goes down. He's feeding pigs at the pigsty, eating food from the trough of the pigs. And he said, if I could just go back to my dad's house, I could at least be a servant and have some food. The Bible says he got his stuff together, that he had a little bag of stuff left, and went home, practicing his speech all the way there of what he was going to say to his dad. I know, Dad, I've made mistakes. I know I'm a failure. I'm not asking you to make me a son. I'm asking you to make me a servant. I'll work, but if I could just live on your farm. When the dad saw him, he comes out running with open arms, calls him a son. He didn't even get a chance to share his speech with his dad. Called him his son. He put a robe on him. He put the family ring on his finger, put shoes on his feet, throws a party for him. And the other brother, who had been doing what he was told to do this whole time, living on the farm, working on the farm, being as honest as he can be, doing what he was supposed to do, gets a little aggravated. And actually, I think I understand why. I get it. Dad, you've not thrown me a party. I've been here this whole time, working, slaving for you, working for you, doing all of this stuff, taking care of the farm, overseeing all this stuff. And my son or my brother, who's been, acting like an idiot and living in the wild life, comes running home, and all of a sudden we're going to throw him a party? That's not fair. I mean, that's just not fair. It's not fair that he gets to come home and you don't scold him, you don't get on to him. And why don't we at least set him down and point out all of his mistakes? That's only fair. It's only fair that I've been living here and you point out my mistakes. I didn't bale the hay right last month. You definitely pointed out that mistake. Didn't get the sheep sheared as quickly as you wanted me. You pointed that mistake out. My brother comes in from living however he wants to live. We throw him a party and you don't even point out his mistakes. That's not fair. No, it's not fair. It's just. The father says, yeah, I know it's not fair. But son, you've been living here every day of your life. You've been eating my food. You've been eating from my table. You've been spending my money. You've been driving my truck. You've been living a good life. You and your family's doing well. You've been over here living up life, and you still have your savings account. Your brother has nothing left. No, it's not fair. It's just. It's just. Now, what's strange about this story is you are kind of right, son. It's not fair. You never had to live in a pig pen. You never had to eat out of the pig's trough. You never had to come home with nothing but shame and despair. You're right. It's not fair. You've lived a good life. It's not fair. We look at people and we go, it's not fair. They have everything. You do know there's people who look at you and say it's not fair. They have everything. It's not fair. It's just not fair. No, it's not fair. It's just. We all are running our race, the one that God has set before us, the one you're called to run. Instead of comparing ourselves to our brother who's ran off or to our brother who's never left home, instead of going, they've got 5 and I only got 1, or they got 2 and I only got 1, maybe we ought to just go, okay, God, here I am today. Help me run my race the way you want me to run it. The third story, a little lesser known story, it's in Matthew chapter 20. Matthew chapter 20, verses 1 through 16. I haven't read any of these. You can go back and read them on your own time. Matthew chapter 20, verse 1 through 16 is this little parable that's a little lesser known, and I think for good reason. We really never talk about this parable. It's the parable, we call it the parable of the vineyard workers. This parable is a little bit different. It's a little lesser known because this parable, I think the reason that it's lesser known we don't talk about is because Jesus started this parable out going, I know this isn't fair. I'm going to tell you a story about how God works, and it's not fair from the very beginning. And he starts telling a story about a guy who owned a vineyard. And he tells this parable, we call it, this story of this guy who owns this vineyard. And he goes out and he hires some guys early in the morning. He goes down, to the local hiring spot, and he says, I need some help in the vineyard. I'm going to pay $5 an hour. I'm going to paraphrase this story. So if you go back, read it. Don't get on Facebook and go, our preacher doesn't preach the truth. I'm paraphrasing it for time's sake and for our understanding. He says, I'm going to pay you $5 an hour if you'll come and work in my vineyard. 6 o'clock in the morning. Come and work all day. I'll pay you not $5 an hour. I'll pay you $5 for the day. Let's make it more like, we're going to pay you $200 a day. Come and work in my vineyard. Man, there's a bunch of guys said, hey, I'm in. They get up, they go down, they start working the vineyard at 6 o'clock in the morning. About noon rolls around, the owner goes, we're never going to get all this done. I've got to go find some more guys. So he goes down to the same spot, and there's some other people sitting there. He says, hey, tell you what, if you want to come, it's noon, I know you just ate lunch, but if you want to come and work for me, I'll give you $200 if you'll come and help at my vineyard. Man, those guys, they say, hey, I'm in. Half a day's work for $200. Not bad. I'm in. They get down, they start in, and day rolls on, the afternoon, as you're getting closer to the evening, he's going, we're never going to get finished with this. He goes back down to the same spot. Sees some guys, he says, hey, I'll tell you what, I know we're running out of daylight, but I need some help. I'll give you $200 if you'll come and help me today. 4 o'clock in the evening, count me in. They jump in, they go down. Now everyone's down here's working at the field. Some started at 6 in the morning and some started at 6 in the evening. All getting paid the same amount of money. And when payday came, after the evening came, the sun was setting, time to get paid, they all line up, and And the owner says, those who I hired first, I want them to be last. And those who I hired last, I want them first. Purposely, Jesus tells this story. He's standing there, the owner is, as they're coming through. He goes, okay, you know, I know we just picked you up at 4 o'clock and it's 7, but here's your $200. Here's your $200. Here's your $200. The guys at the end of the line were going, oh, he's giving bonuses. If they got paid $200, what are we going to get paid? We've been here all day. It would only be fair if he paid me more. Finally, they get down toward the end of the line. He goes, and here's your 200. And here's your 200. And here's your 200. Some of them started to grumble. They said, no. We've been here since 6 this morning. You paid the guys who just showed up 2 hours ago $200. I should get paid more. I've been here all day. And here's what the owner says. Well, didn't I tell you I was going to pay you 200? Yeah. Well, then what makes you think you're going to get paid 400? I told you I was going to pay you 200. I'm giving you exactly what I told you I would give you. Fair? No. Just? Yes. I think, man, I'm reading that story this past week, and I was just going, my goodness, that is not fair. I don't even like the story. No wonder we never talk about that parable. I'm reading that and just going, that is not right. God, I know that you're better than that. You know, I know you know that's not right. I know you know that's not fair. I know you know, God, that if someone only worked 2 hours and someone worked all day, they ought to earn some bonus or something. Give them something. And then I'm reminded of a few things in the Bible. And I'm reminded that God's really not that fair. He's just really just. I'm reminded of a few things in the Bible. And here's what I'm reminded of. Only fair. It's only fair if you've been serving the Lord 70 years and someone just came and started serving the Lord last week and you both die in a car accident. It's only fair that the one who's been serving 70 years, their reward is much greater. Well, it's only fair, but it's not that just. I think about the man on the cross. Do you remember the thief that was on the cross? And he's dying right next to Jesus. I don't know exactly what all this means, but all I know is he said, Jesus, I believe your story. Remember me. And Jesus says something like, I'll see you in a little bit. I'll remember you. I look at that and go, that's not fair. That's not fair. It's not fair that you waited till you're 60 years old to start serving the Lord when the rest of us have been doing it all of our life. No, it's not fair. I'm going to tell you something else that's not fair about God. It's not fair that you lived a life of sin. It's not fair that you were born into sin. It's not fair that you had a hard, black heart filled with sin. It's not fair that you've had struggles and you struggled with sin. It's not fair that you've let God down over and over and over again. That's not fair that you've fallen short over and over again. It's not fair that you've served the Lord for 40 years and you still struggle with things today. That's not fair that we still have all of these things and we still battle through things, and it's not fair that I was born into sin, yet God still loves me. It is not fair that God's grace and mercy is so great that in the midst of all of my mess, he goes, Matt, I'm still here for you. It's not fair that I've ran from God and I've turned my back on God and I've tried to get away from him and he was still there waiting for me with open arms. It's not fair that God is so good to us that in all my shortcomings, he still loves me. He still cares. As many times as I've broken what I would think God's heart, and I've made a mess out of this thing, and I've mistreated God, it's hardly fair that he would still look at me and go, Matt, I still love you. You're still my son. You're still okay. You're going to make it. I still want you to come to eternity with me. That's not even fair, God. It's not fair that you treat me so well. I'm over here comparing myself to everybody else and going, this thing's not fair, when in reality it's not fair that God loves any of us. It's just not right. Yet he chose us, called us, gave you a race to run. Now what are you going to do with it? We can live the rest of our life saying, well, it's just not right and it's not fair. Or we can go, God, you're right, it's not fair and it's not right. I should never even be called a son. I should have just, I'm not even really worthy of being a servant. Yet you meet me in the open field and put a robe on my back and a ring on my finger and shoes on my feet, and you throw me a party. Sure not fair, God, but I appreciate it. That's when I start looking at God and go, whew, God, thank you for not being fair. Thank you for not being fair. Thank you for being just. Thank you for doing exactly what you said you would do. Thank you for that. That's the God we serve today. Amen. I'm going to ask Mackenzie and Josh or whoever to come for a moment this morning. It's not fair. It's not fair that I get to live here and worship the Lord. It's not fair that I get to live in peace and comfort and rejoice in God. It's not fair that I got to hear the truth. It's not fair that I've tasted and seen how good the Lord is while others never have tasted or seen. It's not fair that I've had the favor of God on my life while I see so many others struggling in ways that I don't struggle. It's not fair that I get to enter the same and fair. It's just not even fair that I get to enter the same eternity that the Apostle Paul gets to enter. That I actually get to live on the same block he gets to live on. I think I'm going to be right down the street. And it's not fair. We get to walk the same streets of gold that Paul and Peter, James and John will get to walk on. It's not fair. But God looks at us and says, no, I've made this thing very even and just. If you believe and you call on my name, I'll forgive your sins and you can live in eternity with me. Sure doesn't seem fair to me, but that's the way God did it. And he's very just. I'll ask you all to stand this morning.